Hello there, and welcome to Jake's Movie Tangents. Fun fact, I'm recording this first part again because I made two separate recordings because I had to pause the first one, and then I accidentally recorded over it, so this is actually, I've already recorded the second half, like the spoiler part of the podcast. I'm having to redo the non-spoiler part, so sorry if this is way less genuine. This is kind of a stupid situation. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about Knives Out, written and directed by Rian Johnson.
You all love twisting the knife into one another.
Up your ass.
Oh, very nice.
Matter of fact,
Oh my God.
eat shit.
So, Knives Out. First thing you're probably going to hear from anybody who talks about it is just the fact that every good actor ever is in this movie. Okay, not every, but a lot of great actors are in this movie. You got Daniel Craig, you got Ana de Armas, you got Chris Evans, you got Jamie Lee Curtis, you got Don Johnson, Frank Oz has a tiny part. Apparently Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a tiny part. Who am I missing? Toni Collette. I'm not looking at a list here. I'm going off the top of my head. Catherine Langford, Jaden Martell. Really just Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon too. Michael Shannon's a big part of it. Just so many people are in this movie. And that's what most people are going to say immediately about this movie. But whether this had this A-list cast or just a bunch of nobodies in these principal parts, I don't think it would matter too much, because easily best thing about this movie is the script written by Rian Johnson. One of the most clever screenplays really I've probably seen this year. It's just so full of tiny pieces that are crucial to the bigger picture. I think Daniel Craig's character in the movie references it as like a donut, pieces of a donut, and then at the end he's like, we have a donut and the donut hole, but it turns out we're the hole in the donut hole of the bigger donut. And it was some crazy mind-blowing thing, which I'll talk more about in the spoiler section, which I will put the timestamp in the description below. So for those of you who want to know when to click away or click toward, there you go. But the screenplay is just fantastic. I mean, the dialogue's great, which, a lot of people would think about when I say screenplay, but it's really just all the small elements and small things that are needed and that are perfectly utilized, all the clues, because it's a whodunit murder mystery, so clues are crucial to the movie's success. You got to keep the audience guessing. You got to keep them theorizing and thinking, keep their minds active. That's how you keep them invested in your 2-hour commitment. And this movie does that so damn well. I mean, the comedy works really well. It's not so much the kind of comedy that's done through, like, snappy dialogue. It's more, oh boy, I guess my, phone's ringing. My snap there kind of fucked up the audio, made it climax. Ooh, God damn, now I lost my spot in what I was rambling about. But, yeah, small things, good script. Yeah. Oh, comedy. It's not kind of that raunchy, quick-fire, improv-y dialogue kind of comedy, which, personally, I actually have no problem with. You'll hear a lot of people these days talking about, no, not intelligent humor. No, it has to be smart humor. No. I'm not that kind of person, I'll get a kick out of a lot of random things, but this movie is what many people would define as smart humor. As smart, because there is an objective way to do comedy, as many fucking YouTube critics will say. God damn. No. Comedy is subjective. I sound like the fucking Joker. Comedy is subjective, Murray. But yeah, this movie, I think, is what many people would call smart humor in the way it's very scenario based. Plants and payoffs. That's how it is with the humor. That's how it is with the overall story. That's how it is with the big reveals and twists, plants and payoffs. That's something that, like my screenwriting mentors and teachers will really talk about a lot are plants and payoffs. But what this movie does very interestingly with its plants and payoffs is that while, a lot of movies will have like a plant payoff, and then some plants that are put in and then payoffs to them much later in the movie. This movie is a lot of plant, and then wait till the last act of the movie and then just fucking payoff galore, which is why the third act and the conclusion of this movie is just so damn riveting, really. Not to say there's not a lot of quick payoffs throughout the movie. Obviously, you need those to help keep things engaging. But yeah, let's dive into the actors now. Well, you got Daniel Craig, first of all, who in this movie has this very high-class, rich, kind of southern accent. The kind that, like, the fucking slave owners would have in Django Unchained, or I don't know how many Office fans are listening, but Andy Bernard talks about, like, the differences between southern accent, and there's, like, this one high-class one. I'll see if I can find a little audio clip it real quick.
You really want is more of a Savannah accent, which is more like molasses just sort of spilling out of your mouth.
Yeah, Daniel Craig's basically rocking that kind of accent, and it's pretty hilarious because that kind of over-the-top accent is, and just his character, his kind of over-the-top character is really just utterly perfect for this movie. I think Rian Johnson wrote this character, and Daniel Craig portrayed this character perfectly and with complete knowledge of the movie and, the movie that they're making. And because, a lot of times, like, over the top is a bad thing, but in this case, no, because without getting into too many spoilers, Daniel Craig's character is basically like kind of, not entirely, but there's definitely parts of him that are an intentional parody of, like, over-ambitious detectives in movies. And, the movie pokes at that, and he kind of, like, people in the movie kind of make fun of him sometimes, because he's always kind of acting like he's in a crazy murder mystery movie. Kind of meta, but awesome. So yeah, Daniel Craig is really fucking hilarious in this movie. Let's see, who else? Toni Collette, who's... the best way I can compare her to another movie character would be, for those of you who are familiar with Mean Girls, Regina George's mom, played by Amy Poehler. Toni Collette is kind of like the kind of mom who has, like, a really hot, popular teenage daughter who has nothing, the mom has nothing else going on in her life besides her daughter, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna talk, act, and think like my teenage daughter. So you have, like, a woman in her mid-40s acting like she's 16. So that's kind of funny. You have, like, I think 3 characters with, like, a big quirk, which would be Daniel Craig's character, Toni Collette, and then Chris Evans, who's, like, the trust fund rich boy asshole. The kind who, like, doesn't do any of his own work and just lives off of, all the money coming in from his family. Those are the 3 with, like, big, exuberant personalities. Then you got a lot of people like Don Johnson, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Michael Shannon, who play more down-to-earth people, but still, still a little out there, because they're still millionaires. And they're, descendants of a billionaire. So, I mean, they're still going to be a little out of whack. But I think there's less to talk about those performances. They were all really good. They just weren't as exuberant and like conversation start. I've used the word exuberant. Is that even a fucking word? Is that a word in the dictionary? I'm gonna Google that while I talk. But yeah, they're not like as much of a conversation starter as Craig or Evans or Colette might be. Exuberant. Filled or characterized by a lively energy and excitement. Okay, I used that word perfectly, and fuck you if you didn't think so. But yeah, but the main character, which you wouldn't get from the marketing of this movie, because they really kind of market Daniel Craig and Jamie Lee Curtis, maybe even Lakeith Steinfeld, as kind of the center of the movie, but it's all Ana de Armas's character, or Ana de Anya. I don't fucking know. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna just say Ana de Armas. Her character, whose name is Marta, she's the main character of the movie. She's the protagonist that you're rooting for throughout, and that's, you know, that's the story that the story centers around. She's the protagonist. She's one of the more down-to-earth characters, but she's built on several little mistakes, whether it's by, like, people in her past or herself or in the events of the movie. She's someone who's made a few mistakes and has to kind of push through those now and pay a little bit of the price and try to get past them. And they're all coming back to bite her in this movie. And that's something interesting because it's so damn easy nowadays. Easy and very common these days is the word I'm looking for movies to just write a protagonist without much personality, but to substitute that, they just make them a perfect human being, like morally or like physically, just everything about them perfect. That's a trap that a lot of movies fall into these days. That's not a trap Rian Johnson fell into with Knives Out. That's what made the character of Marta so engaging, is because she has so many like little fuck-ups that make her, you know, likable and relatable in some ways and someone to root for, because there's really no need to root for somebody for like a character that's perfect, because you know they're going to win. But for a character whose foundation is a bunch of little mess-ups, that's somebody who you do have to root for, because, you know, they might not come out on top of every situation. So her character, though she wasn't as like flamboyant as some of the bigger names, she was really engaging, and she was rightfully the main character of the movie. So I thought I'd throw that out there before I got into other stuff. Okay, as I was saying before I got off track, Rian Johnson's friend, Noah Segan, he has a big role in Brick. He has like one scene in Brothers Bloom. He has a big role in Looper, and then he's got like 2 scenes in Last Jedi. He's in this movie, and he's a good actor, especially a good comedic actor. I think they should really try to extend on his comedic chops, because in Brick and Looper he kind of plays like this whiny bratty kid. But this movie shows he's got some comedy chops. So anybody out there that isn't Rian Johnson, Rian Johnson, yeah, keep casting him, but I don't need to. No one needs to tell Rian Johnson to keep casting Noah Segan. That's going to keep happening. I think like other filmmakers should look at Noah Segan, because he's pretty good. But yeah, so I guess I'll just do a quick review real quick before I get into, I said quick 80 times, just quick rundown briefing of my thoughts before I get into spoilers. So yeah, Knives Out, very, very good movie. I think it's number 6 on my ranking 2019 list. For those of you who need context, it's number 6 out of a list of 41 new releases I've seen this year. So 6 out of 41, that's pretty damn good. I loved it. The ending is incredibly satisfying. The characters are great. The script is so clever. Acting's fantastic all across the board. There's just so many spoilery things about this movie that I need to get into. So, without further ado, spoilers start right the fuck now. Okay. Well, where to begin? God. We'll just start. So, Marta is our main character. The family, the very wealthy family, each member, whether it's a cousin or a daughter, or daughter or son-in-law of fucking what's his name, Harlan, Christopher Plummer's character who died. So yeah, Christopher Plummer, his character dies. He's this really, really mega rich author who has a massive inheritance that he's gonna send down. So, everybody's waiting to see who's gonna get the will. And the will's, yeah, it's big. It's his mansion and control over his publishing company and like $60 million. So he's... everyone's wondering who's gonna get control over all that. And how it's going to be divided up. So all the family members are there and ready to see how much money they're getting. And then there's Marta, who is his nurse, because he's like 80-something, so she's there to take care of him almost 24/7. And she comes from like an immigrant family from somewhere in Central America or South America. It's a kind of a running joke. You don't clearly get where she's from because you only hear the rich family members telling people where she's from, and you hear like 3 different countries, but she comes somewhere south of the border. And so yeah, she has a pretty poor family. She lives with her parents, but she's constantly working with Christopher Plummer's character, who grows really close to her, and vice versa. So that's kind of the big thing, because one of the things that you find out that really creates conflict, especially from a snobby, rich, and powerful family, is that right before Christopher Plummer dies, he leaves every last bit in his inheritance to Marta. So that's the 60 mil, that's the mansion, that's control of his company, that's everything to his nurse, and the family loses their shit. And it's kind of hilarious because they're all acting so nice to her before they know this. They're like, oh yeah, it's Marta, she's so cute, oh she's so sweet, oh she takes care of well, she does kind of kill him. We'll talk about that in a bit. But they just think she's adorable and sweet, and they all love her to pieces supposedly. And then they're all each telling her, like, hey, when we get our bit of the inheritance, we are going to help you and your family out financially. Like, don't worry. We're going to help you. Maybe you can come live with us. Like, they're like fucking Michael Shannon's character, I think it was him that offers for her to, like, I don't know, like, live with him, but, like, he was going to basically pay for her everything. So they're all so damn nice to her, and then it's just a complete 180 once the will is announced. And that was kind of hilarious and kind of an interesting little nab at the way, like, you might be a totally like shitty person, but you just wear a mask of niceness towards other people. But the moment that other person who you're pretending to be nice to, has something on you, or something that, like, just something that makes you have a conflict with them, it's boom, like, complete 180. And that was really fucking funny. And the scene where that's revealed is so damn great, because Chris Evans rolls in just before that scene happens, he misses Christopher Plummer's funeral, and he comes in, and he's the only one who's been straight up told by Christopher Plummer that he's been cut out of the will, and it's going to Marta. I don't think he knows that the whole will is being given to Marta. He just knows his share is. So he shows up, and everyone can tell he's mad about not getting any bit of the inheritance, and they're all like, you know what, this'll be good for you. Now you can stop being just a little trust fund bitch. And he's like, fuck you. And he tells them all to eat shit, as you see in the trailer. But they're all just being so patronizing and assholish. Like, yeah, you don't even deserve any of this. No, it'll be good for you. Just remember that line. It'll be good for you. Because then it's announced that no one is getting anything except for Marta. And then he's just laughing his ass off and just watching all the shit go down. And then Marta just runs out of the house, and they all follow her and crowd around her car. So then Chris Evans comes to the rescue and picks her up in his car. And then as he drives away from the estate, he rolls down the window and yells, "Hey, I think it'll be good for you all." And that was fucking hilarious. Yeah, a little bit ago, I hinted to Marta's involvement in Christopher Plummer's character's death. So this is interesting because in this whodunit, Rian Johnson basically tells you who did it in the very first act of the movie, which is, so what happens is Marta and Christopher Harlan. His name is Harlan. Let me just fact check this. I'm so tired of calling all the characters, not all the characters, just Marta, really, but calling some characters by their names and some characters the actors. Pretty sure Harlan Thrombey, is that it? Is that it? Christopher Plummer? Yeah, Harlan Thrombey. So that's Christopher Plummer. He's Harlan. So Harlan and Marta are like playing a board game up in the attic, not attic, study. I don't fucking know. It's a big house. There's a lot of rooms that I don't know the name of. They're playing a board game, and then she's gonna give him his daily dose of medication. He has to take these injections. One is like a tiny 3 milligram thing of morphine, and one is 100 milligrams of some medicine that she injects. But what she realizes after she gives him injections is she accidentally gave him 100 milligrams of morphine rather than 3 milligrams of morphine, and 3 milligrams of the 100 milligrams of the medication that he was supposed to have. Did you follow that? She gives him 100 milligrams of morphine, which is 97 more than he's supposed to have. And so they're both like, holy shit, he doesn't have much time to live now. And he very quickly accepts, like, okay, I'm going to die now. But he has grown so close to Marta and he loves her. So he's like, okay, we're going to cover this up. You're going to sneak out and make it seem like, you're going to make this alibi, and we're going to make it completely untraceable back to you. So she sneaks out, and then he slits his own throat, makes it look like a suicide. And then there's all this stuff that I don't remember all the steps, but they made it seem like she was still in the house, like in another room when it happened, when really she was leaving the house. I don't know. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not going to give you a play-by-play. Fuck you. Sorry, just readjusting my seat. Cool. So that was how he supposedly died. Well, he dies because he slits his own throat, but also she supposedly injected him with 100 milligrams of morphine. But, sorry for your eardrums, by the way. It's too late. I already did it. What's revealed at the very end is that, like, Chris Evans' character he knew that she was getting the inheritance, so he was trying to get her arrested so he could get it instead, and the family could get it. So what he does is he, like, switched out the bottles, so that she would give him morphine rather than the meds. So he switched out the bottles, which is supposedly why she fucks up. And then it got more complicated because... Okay, wait. Yeah, let me... trying to recall everything. It's been 2 weeks since I've seen the movie. So he reveals that he switched the bottles. So she's like, oh, fuck. Like, that's why. He tricked me, and so that's why I gave him the 100 milligrams of morphine. But then another twist, it actually, she's such a good nurse that she was kind of on autopilot when she was grabbing these bottles, and she knows the feel of the morphine bottle versus the actual medicine bottle. So she did actually give Harlan the correct dose of morphine and medicine, but Harlan slit his throat anyway because she was convinced that she had given him the morphine, which was obviously not Chris Evans' plan. His plan was just to get her to do the morphine, but he did good enough because he made her think that she gave him the morphine, and so he killed himself to help her. But yeah, so really the big bad behind it all was Chris Evans. Ransom is his character's name. It was Ransom's doing. He wanted Thromby dead, and he wanted Marta to be the person who did it so they could all get the money. And that was interesting because throughout the whole movie it's like, okay, well, Marta did this, so it's not, what's there to really be added to it now. But then you get it, it's all this extra wicked complicated shit with Chris Evans. Oh god, and there's just, I know we're in spoilers and I've already wrecked it for you, but there's just so many tiny things, and I really can't cover all of them because there's just too many. There's too many to cover in a podcast, and I cannot remember the movie, thoroughly enough to get all of them, because I'd have to remember, almost every shot of the movie in order to give you guys all the hints that Rian Johnson gives you. There was, this whole thing where there was, this one kind of hint where Marta arrives at a woman who's dying, and she says, whispering, she's like, you did this. So you're thinking, oh, fuck, this lady is blaming Marta for killing Harlan Thromby and now her, which she definitely didn't do. But then you realize, which you never really think of because it's only mentioned once, but Ransom's first name is Hugh. Hugh, as in Hugh Jackman. So the dying lady revealed at the end is actually saying Hugh did this, which is really kind of confusing. And there's another little small plant there, but you really just, you gotta see the movie. I'm not here to give you the rundown of what happens. I'm bringing up the things that I think are worth talking about and saying my thoughts on them. And the ending was just a beautiful mindfuck, really, because every tiny little piece of the puzzle came together so goddamn well. And it really just speaks to how good of a filmmaker Rian Johnson is. I mean, he's made 5 mainstream movies: Brick, Brothers Bloom, Looper, Last Jedi, and now Knives Out. I love all 5 of those movies. Brothers Bloom is I'd say I love it. It crosses to the love threshold. It's between B+ and A-. That's Brothers Bloom is between B+, A-. Knives Out, giving it on the letter grade scale, is a high A, maybe an A+, but really just high A, I think. It's just an incredible movie. I think it'll probably get a Best Screenplay nomination in terms of Oscars and Golden Globes. I don't know about anything else, but probably Best Original Screenplay, because good God, it deserves it. I mean, This is like screenwriting 101. This is a kind of screenplay that I think should be taught in screenwriting classes and in film classes. It's just so careful and so thorough. And that's what makes it so damn great. And yeah, that's really, that sums up my thoughts on Knives Out. Definitely check it out. Sorry, still kind of sick. Even if you have listened through this whole spoiler section, you still got to see it, because even though I've spoiled the overall twists, I'm sure it's still going to mindfuck you when you see it in the theater, because I didn't get even close to a third of all the tiny little steps that come to fulfilling that conclusion. And that's really the fun part of the movie. It's just all the small little pieces put into place. So yeah, it is really just a brilliant movie. Rian Johnson is probably one of my favorite filmmakers working today. He's just damn good. So yeah, go see Knives Out. And thank you so much for listening, especially if you've made it all the way through. And I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.